Good evening. Welcome to Live from the Loft, our Salem Good Friday worship service. I want to give you a couple of instructions about tonight. First of all, when we get to the readings, the service ends with some readings of Jesus' crucifixion, and there's 7 of them. And after each reading, there will be 30 seconds of silence. We'll put a candle out and we'll wait 30 seconds for silence. And during those 30 seconds, I want you to try and clear your mind. Just think about I am breathing in on your in-breath and I am breathing out on your out-breath. That's the way we kind of come to peace. So that with each candle we put out, you're finding yourself getting deeper and deeper into a peaceful state. Also, when we put out the last candle, it will be dark and darkness. And we will, in the darkness, say the Lord's Prayer. Now, tonight, I'm sorry, Salem family, I'm going to use trespasses just because we have so many people tuning in that's what they're more familiar with. Don't worry, on Easter, I'm going to use debts and debtors. But of course, my Salem family, you are free to use debts and debtors at home. So when I get to the Lord's Prayer tonight, everybody say it together. We'll say that together in the darkness. When we finish saying that, we're going to relight the Christ candle. That's a symbol of the hope that we know is coming. And there'll be one final song, and then we'll end. So that's what's coming up. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Good Friday. This is the night we remember Jesus' crucifixion. Last week, Palm Sunday, I told you about how Jesus came in to Jerusalem through the East Gate in an alternative procession to Pilate, who was coming in the West Gate. And he did that as a protest of the kind of imperial power that was crushing people and treating them as worthless. Well, after that day, Jesus goes back out of the city, Mark tells us, back into the hills, spends the night, and comes back on Monday. And on Monday, the first place he goes is the temple. And when he gets to the temple, he overturns the money changer tables and he shuts down all the commerce and trading that's happening there. So if on Sunday he protested the power of the empire and how it was crushing people, on Monday he protested the Jewish leadership elite, which was in collaboration with Rome, and how they were also crushing the people. And the people loved it. And the reason they loved it was because for the first time someone of authority, a deep authority, Jesus, was seeing the God in them, was seeing their worth, was seeing their value. And so they were on fire and loving what was happening. So much so that they were afraid to arrest Jesus at that time. They were afraid it would cause a riot. So after he clears the temple, he comes back in on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and talks and is well received. But empires don't sleep, and they don't allow people to stand against them. And so on Thursday night, the collaborators, the Jewish authorities, send some people out, arrest Jesus. He's brought before the Jewish authorities who don't have the power to crucify him. They send him to Pilate. Pilate condemns him, and he's crucified. And the fact that he's crucified tells us something more. It tells us that he was a threat to the established order. Crucifixion was a form of execution that was only used on insurrectionists. It was only used on rebels. You didn't get crucified if you stole something. This was only for people that threatened the established order. And this is an amazing thing to me. Think about this. Jesus' mentor, John the Baptist, executed by the empire and its collaborators. Then comes Jesus himself, executed by the empire and their collaborators. Then, short after Jesus' death, the Apostle Paul executed. The Apostle Peter executed. And then just go right down the list. They're all executed. What was the threat of simply telling a message that all people have value and worth and are filled with God? How was that such a threat to the established order? But here's one more amazing thing. Even as they nail him to a cross and he's dying, Jesus stays true to God and to himself. He forgives those that put him there. He even sees the God and the value in the ones who nail him to the cross. He sees beneath their rage. And what does he say? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. In other words, Father, their consciousness has not been raised to a high enough point that they see God in every person. And so tonight, I think the greatest way that you can honor the death of Jesus is to see yourself the way Christ sees you, as a person of value, as a person of worth, as a person filled with God. Tonight, as Jesus slowly lets go of his life, you need to let go of guilt. Oh, I'm not a good enough mother. Oh, I never visited my parents enough when they were living. Whatever the guilt is you carry around, let it go. Tonight, as Jesus lets go of his life, you need to let go of shame. Oh, I was never the person I should have been. Oh, I've been through a divorce and I've ruined my children. Oh, whatever it is, whatever kind of shame you carry around, let it go. Tonight, as Jesus lets go of his life, let go of fear. Oh, what if I get the virus? What if I don't get a paycheck? What if my pension evaporates? Let go of all of it tonight. And when you let go of everything, what you'll find is that all that's left is you in Christ. And he'll see you and you'll see yourself as the person you were created to be. A beautiful, filled with God human being that's going to make it. Amen.
knew there when they laid him in the tomb.
Okay, at this time I suggest to everyone watching at home to dim the lights. It should be dark for this part of the service in your home. Jesus was still speaking when Judas the betrayer came up. He was one of the 12 disciples, and a large mob armed with swords and clubs was with him. They had been sent by the chief priests and the nation's leaders. Judas had told them ahead of time, "Arrest the man I greet with a kiss." Judas walked right up to Jesus and said, "Hello, teacher." Then Judas kissed him. Jesus replied, "My friend, why are you here?" The men grabbed Jesus and arrested him. One of Jesus' followers pulled out a sword. He struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. But Jesus told him, "Put your sword away. Anyone who lives by fighting will die by fighting. Don't you know that I could ask my Father, and right away he would send me more than 12 armies of angels? But then, how could the words of the Scriptures come true, which say that this must first happen?" Jesus said to the mob, "Why do you come with swords and clubs and arrest me like a criminal? Day after day I sat and taught in the temple, and you didn't arrest me. But all this happened so that what the prophets wrote would come true." All of Jesus' disciples left him and ran away.
You pass this way, look and see.
After Jesus had been arrested, he was led off to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. The nation's leaders and the teachers of the law of Moses were meeting there. But Peter followed along at a distance and came to the courtyard of the high priest's palace. He went in and sat down with the guards to see what was going to happen. The chief priests and the whole council wanted to put Jesus to death, so they tried to find some people who would tell lies about him in court. But they could not find any, even though many did come and tell lies. At last, 2 men came forward and said, "This man claimed that he would tear down God's temple and build it again in 3 days." The high priest stood up and asked Jesus, "Why don't you say something in your own defense? Don't you hear the charges they are making against you?" But Jesus did not answer. So the high priest said, "With the living God looking on, you must tell the truth. Tell us, are you the Messiah, the Son of God?" "That is what you say," Jesus answered, "but I tell all of you, soon you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right side of God All-Powerful and coming on the clouds of heaven." The high priest then tore his robe and said, "This man claims to be God. We don't need any more witnesses. You have heard what he said. What do you think?" They answered, "He is guilty and deserves to die." Then they spit in his face and hit him with their fists. Others slapped him and said, "You think you are the Messiah? So tell us who hit you."